Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out Malicious Compliance. Story 1. Muddy Drill Sergeant. First of all, I got mad respect for the uniform and all servicemen, past and present. Except for one. Here's my story. When I was 19 I did my military service as was custom for young men in my country. See, I am not American. Anyhow, I did enjoy my time in the defense force quite a lot. Made some new friends, learned a lot of new stuff, and I also bought me 1 year of thinking of what to do with my life. I had some plans to continue in uniform one WSY or another, but that is not really interesting in this story. What is interesting is some basic facts to keep in mind during my story, however. First of all, I did my military service 15-minute drive from home, which meant I knew all the area around the base pretty well since I had grown up in there. I am also that kind of person that will ask questions to learn more and who will always try to put in my best effort in everything I do. And also, to learn the rules. As a new recruit there is a ton of things to learn. How to dress, how many buttons to button, and so on. Shaving of the hair is encouraged but not mandatory. Same goes for facial hair. Personally, I enjoy having a bit of hair on top but shaved on the sides. And here my antagonist enters the story. One of the 3 drill sergeants that was set to teach us the basics of soldiering. I was quick to learn the ropes, maybe not the most fit of the recruits but certainly not the sloppiest either. Every morning we would line up for inspection and the drill sergeants would inspect each and every one of us recruits, often finding small defects to complain about, sending us away to correct. And each time it happened me I would always smile and say yes sir and go and correct it, knowing there was nothing to correct, it was just a way to drill us. Now, one of the sergeants, let's call him SGTB, always found something to complain about on everyone, and I think it annoyed him that I always smiled. SGTB was shorter than average and somewhat rounded, not fat, just a bit chunkier than average as well. Instead of talking loud like the others he preferred screaming, especially in the face of people. I guess he had seen too many war movies with bad drill instructors in them. That did not go down well with us conscripts really. We quickly lost respect for him as a person, but we did respect him for being our superior officer, or his uniform if that makes sense. Anyhow, he did not seem to like me at all and would always mess with me, and one day I got my revenge. It was in the fall. We were at the base training for a bigger exercise coming up. They had divided us into groups of 8. Mission was to relocate from one location to another. We had all our personal equipment like backpack, weapon, and so on, plus the group tent, stove, and heavy machine gun. So we were quite heavy, equipment-wise. And I was assigned group leader this event. Good thing, we were in an area I knew well, so navigating was easy since I knew all paths in the forest and so on. And SGTB was tagging along, not knowing I knew the area, but my team knew. The path we took ended up at a small swamp and would split so you could walk around the swamp on either side. I decided we should take a 5-minute rest since we were ahead of schedule anyway. SGTB did not like that, even though I think honestly he was the one who needed it the most since he was the one huffing and puffing despite he didn't carry anything except his uniform and a water bottle. I asked my team which side around the swamp they wanted to go and told them the pros and cons of each way. I don't remember which way we choose, but I remember I picked up the machine gun, 12.4 kilograms, so quite heavy. Now SGTB intervened and demanded I checked the map, but I said we already decided to go round the swamp. For some reason SGTB wanted us to cross the swamp. It looked dry enough to cross, but I declined and said we'd go round. This is where he pulled rank and demanded we cross, cue my malicious compliance. I asked him if he would take command of the group and lead us across, to which he replied, "I'll take command. Group, follow me." So I stood down and let him past me. I think he managed to take about 1.5 steps into the swamp before he had sunken down to his waist in mud. We decided not to follow him and instead we all just looked at him. After a while one of the others asked him, "Any new orders, sir?" We pulled him out of the swamp. He was furious but didn't say a word. He walked back the way we came in his wet muddy uniform, the rest of us continued around the swamp. We did not see him back in camp that day. After that incident he did not bother me anymore for the rest of my conscription time. No TLDR here. Sorry for that. Smiley face. Story 2. Hotshot and the Hot Wings from Hell. This story comes from my friends Adam and Belle and involves Adam's nephew, who lived in the Southwest, US, at the time. He earned the nickname Hotshot as a result of this. Nephew Hotshot was a braggart. He always had the loudest motorcycles, the hottest girls and the highest scores at arcade games. According to Belle and Adam, he was a good kid but he could have used a lesson in humility. Adam and Belle are visiting Hotshot and his family and they decide to go out to dinner one night. Adam was looking up restaurants in the area and found a local place that advertised the hot wings from hell. At this restaurant, there is a challenge where if you can finish 1 pound, about 10 pieces, of the hot wings from hell, you get a picture and name on the wall of fame, a t-shirt that says I ate the hot wings from hell and survived and your meal comped. As you can probably guess, Adam's recommendation they go there was an invitation for Hotshot to say oh yeah. Those wings are nothing. I can eat the hot wings without breaking a sweat. Adam, figuring this was the opportunity to teach Hotshot a lesson said oh yeah? $50 says you can't. You're on. Hotshot said and they shook on it. They get settled in the restaurant and the waitress comes to take their order. Chest puffed out with pride, Hotshot said I'm here for the hot wings challenge. The waitress rolled her eyes and said okay, hot wings for Mr. Hotshot. She wrote it on her pad. Just so you know, that comes with all the free milk you want. It's here that Hotshot sealed his fate. I'll have a Bud Light on tap instead, if you don't mind. May the Lord have mercy on your soul. The waitress said before shouting to the kitchen. Jackass at table 9 wants the hot wings from hell with a Bud Light. No free milk. Their dinner comes out, complete with disposable gloves, to prevent capsaicin burns, and a waiver. At this point, word has spread that some poor soul is about to complete the hot wings from hell challenge and a crowd gathers. The manager on duty is there to make sure Hotshot actually finishes the wings on his own. After saying you better have the camera ready and I wear a large, Hotshot signs the waiver, dons the gloves and takes his first few bites. See. This is nothing. He said, finishing one wing. Second wing come along, no problem. An important thing about capsaicin is that it sometimes takes a little bit to kick in, something Hotshot learned on his third wing. He's sweating up a storm, tears are rolling down his face and he looks like a tomato had smashed into his face. Belle, Adam, and the rest of the family are laughing so hard that tears are rolling down their cheeks. The other patrons are chanting eat. 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 But poor Hotshot can't even continue. While all this is going on, the waitress has been preparing a tray with a pitcher and a shot glass. When she notices Hotshot struggling, she comes over with the tray and asks, ever so kindly, would you like some milk, sweetie? Hotshot, either too much in pain or too embarrassed, nodded. Because you didn't want the free milk, it's $5 a shot. He downed 2 whole pitchers of milk, with the waitress counting how many shots he downed. At the end of it all, Hotshot was out $300. This included the basket of wings, the shots of milk and what he owed Adam. Adam said it had to be the most expensive lesson in Hotshot's life. He wasn't in such a braggy mood after that. Story 3. How MR and MRS Superb_Raccoon got married and pulled a fast one on future mill. So this is a story of how I, Superb_Raccoon proposed to my wife of 25 years, Mrs. Superb_Raccoon, and how we maliciously complied with social expectations around a proposal. Mrs. Superb_Raccoon, at the time Ms. Stunning_Redhead, met through a mutual friend, my roommate, and her ex from college. It was, as they say, love at first sight. At least according to her. She says she looked into my eyes and saw our life together in a flash, so despite being there to hook up with said ex, she diverted her attention to me. We were meant to be together, she told me later. She was right. And I use this to explain my utter failing with the other half of humanity up until this point. She was the one, and previous disasters were evidence of the universe using a brick to get its point across. Repeatedly. So our romance bloomed, we eventually moved in together, and after a year, Ms. Stunning_Redhead says it would be really romantic if we got married 3 years after our first kiss. The universe had spoken, later immortalized by Miss Rhode Island as the perfect date, not too hot, not too cold, all you need is a light jacket. Future Mill, who I loved dearly and miss every day, Liz Taylor_Twin, was fairly old-fashioned. I absolutely went to her to ask permission, even though we both knew the answer. It was the principle of the thing, the proper social norms must be observed. Of course she wanted things perfect, and just so. Our wedding was no different, she wanted everything perfect for her little girl. She funded much of it, especially things we could not afford, like an open bar. Really grateful for all she did for us. Really. Promise. So the date is set. Everything is planned down to the nubbins. It is the night of the rehearsal dinner, and there is just one small issue I had never actually proposed. Future Mrs. Superb_Raccoon and I decided to enact a little malicious compliance during dinner, at the ubiquitous spaghetti factory, after drinks were served but before dinner came out. I got everyone's attention and went down on one knee to propose. Future Mrs. Raccoon sweeps a hand dramatically to her forehead. I don't love you anymore, a pin could be heard. An audible gasp was heard as Mill's head swiveled and her full attention was now on her daughter and I. Like the eye of Sauron, it blazed across the room. But I don't love you any less, so I guess yes. Laughter broke out and the party resumed. Wedding proceeded the next day with barely a hitch, none worth of note. Mill later gave us a little hell for scaring her like that, but was a good sport about it and retold the story herself about how we nearly gave her a heart attack. Bonus. Later that evening, Mrs. SR and I are in the honeymoon suite. She calls her mom. He's in the bathroom getting undressed, what do I do? Bonus. Later that evening I clocked my head on a sconce while turning down the covers on the bed, spent a good part of the evening with an ice pack on my head to reduce the swelling. Story 4. Don't talk back to the supervisor. Okay, then I won't talk back to the supervisor. When I was 18 I used to work at a fast food restaurant. At the time of this happening, I was working in the kitchen and I had 2 co-workers with me, my best friend and a newish girl. We were in a rush and my co-workers and I were doing all we could to get the food out as fast as possible. My best friend and I had about 1 year working there, so we were kinda used to the rush by now, but our other co-worker had like a month working in the kitchen and she was doing all she could. Apparently that wasn't enough to the supervisor in charge of our shift, because she came, in the middle of the rush, mind you, to scold our co-worker because she was just lazing around. My best friend and got mad, not only because the scolding was unnecessary but because we were still mid-rush and this supervisor was just wasting our time. So I said something along the lines of, "Why don't you just leave her alone? She's new and you are just making it worse. If she's being so slow you should help us." It was normal for the supervisor to step in to help if we were stuck, but this one didn't do that, and she now got mad at me and started yelling things at me, but at this point I was just ignoring her. When the rush passed, I was called to the manager's office and the manager and her berated me for talking back to a supervisor. They made me sign some paper where I promised to never talk back to a supervisor again. So like 30 minutes pass and I'm on my break, and this supervisor comes to me trying to make some small talk. I proceed to ignore her and she gets mad when she notices that I'm not answering her questions. So I calmly reply, "Didn't I just sign a paper where I promised that I never would talk back to you?" She then got even more mad and left me to enjoy the rest of my break. Edited because I missed all the periods, sorry. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.